So not a particularly nice sighting to see. Interesting, yes. Bit of excitement, yes, but unpleasant with the ending. And when watched without any context, it seems fairly unnecessary as well. So what we're going to do is kind of break it down, give a bit more context, and understand why and how the situation came about. Let me start by adding some context to the situation. The lionesses and youngsters in the video are the Topi pride, sometimes known as a Rhino Ridge pride. They are a pride that earlier in 2018 lost one of their dominant males to complications of old age, and the second male that was with them then left the area due to the pressure put on by younger, stronger coalition. The two males in the video are two of that younger, stronger coalition, the Bilashaka males. There are 6 males in total, and they are currently taking over the pride, the Topi pride that is seen in the video. So as these Bilashaka males came into contact with the Topi pride, obviously there was no resistance as the males had gone. The youngsters of the pride that were signed by the previous males were of varying ages, and quite a few of the older sub-adults moved off and formed a little splinter group, which we can see here. Males seem to accept as potential breeding stock, and 2 of the very much younger males that were part of the pride stayed around where their mother was. One of those had not been seen for a few months, and the other one is the one featured in the video. So generally the young male here had been staying out of the way of the big males, only joining the females to feed when the big males weren't around. What seems to be the situation here is that the lionesses had made the kill, and the youngster had joined them to eat, and the males had then turned up and taken over the kill. Now, to start with, the females were around the youngster, the males were concentrating on feeding, so he was still safe. Why they didn't move him away at that time, we don't know. So when I started filming, the situation was that lionesses were scattered around everywhere, one big guy on the kill, and the second male lying in the long grass with one of the females. At that point, there didn't seem to be any undue aggression going on. Obviously, the male on the kill was a bit grumpy defending it from the others, wanted it all to himself, and thought it was just going to be a nice sighting of a lion eating. After a while, the second male suddenly got up and started stalking around. You can see here that the young sub-adult male had put his head up in the grass. I think it was at that point they realised that it was a sub-adult male rather than one of the other younger lionesses. He went stalking around. You see the female, the mother, getting up, trying to distract the second male's attention, which left the younger male on his own, kind of unattended. And as the male moved around the tree, the younger male obviously moved a little bit too close to the male who was feeding, and they obviously saw what was seen. So now the young male is in basically double trouble. Too close to the male that's feeding, who wants to defend the carcass, but also not being the son of either of the males that are there, and they will want to take him out in order to bring his mother back into estrus so they can produce their own cubs. So the opportunity suddenly presented itself for the male that's on the carcass, and he goes in for the attack, as we see. So we see the attack slow down a little bit here. It's a bite, shake and a drag, and then release as the other lions come in. It's fairly quick, but very, very efficient. Typically, when lions are going after rivals, they do go for the spine, for the back like that. It is a weak spot, and with a younger male like this, it's a lot weaker than it would be with an adult male. What's either happened, looking at the aftermath, is that either one of the teeth has gone straight through the spinal cord and severed it, or that drag and shake has snapped the spine. Again, just to reiterate the reasoning behind what happened, that young male had gotten too close to the male, gotten the opportunity first to defend the kill, but also to take out a youngster whose mother was spending time looking after him, and therefore not mating with the males, the youngster being the son of the previous dominant males, not being or not belonging to the males that were there. Okay, so I think we're fairly clear now as to why the attack happened. But why leave the young male like that? Why did the big male not finish him off? That was a question I saw a lot when the video was first posted on social media. The simple fact is that the big male has done his job. He doesn't need to do anything more. The threat is eliminated. The young male is completely immobilized. He's not going to carry on. He doesn't need to waste any more energy on that young male when he's got other things to think about. Now we'll move on to what happened next. The original video just shows the young male dragging his broken body away. There was quite a big time gap between the attack and that particular image, and we'll see some of what was going on here. Now, a lot of people on social media are asking, the vet's going to come, and so on and so on. And yes, the vets were called, but not immediately. The attack happened so quickly, and when you look at the male, there's very little blood. We weren't sure how much injury there was, so we stayed and we watched and waited. We weren't sure if initially it was just sore or if there was something worse. Obviously, he was lying there looking sorry for himself. We couldn't see a lot of movement because there wasn't a lot of movement. The lioness next to him with her tail flicking gave some hope because we weren't sure if it was his tail or her tail. Eventually she moved away and we could see, and he tried to roll over, and it was very noticeable that there was something wrong with the back end of his body. And then when he eventually sat up and the back was at the funny angle, then the vets were called. Now, obviously the veterinary team has a very large area to cover. They didn't come immediately because even if they did leave immediately of the call, it would still possibly take a couple of hours to get there. So we weren't there when they actually arrived, but they would have come. They wouldn't have been able to fix him at all. That sort of injury is not fixable, even in a proper hospital, let alone out of the bush. So all they would have done is help him on his way. So by the evening, the male was gone, and the pride carried on. And that's just an unfortunate factor of a male lion takeover. When they do take over, the males are going to be the ones that are targeted to bring the females back into estrus. So hopefully this has brought a little bit more light to the situation, giving you guys that are watching a little bit more understanding as to what and why happened there. Hopefully I didn't waffle on too much for you. It's a good insight as to what happens during a takeover. It's a good insight as to why only 1 in 6 young males do make it to adulthood, and why a pride prefers having a stronger coalition being in control, because there's less chance of a takeover whilst they're raising cubs. Anyway, that's all we've got on this subject, so see you next time.